Hey, welcome to Sanity After Betrayal, the podcast, the new and improved version. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh, and I'm here with Jamie Watson. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, how are you?
And you may recognize Jamie from my YouTube channel, Porn Brain Rewire. I know a lot of people do recognize her from that. And thankfully, Jamie has agreed to move over and become the lead coach on the Sanity After Betrayal program. And so that's really exciting because this program is designed to help women across the world, first of all, help their own situation in terms of betrayal trauma, which we will break down in a minute, but also get the guidance and the support and the motivation to move forward in helping their man recover from porn addiction or any acting out behavior that falls out of porn, like infidelity, like any other sexual acting out behavior online, and like sexual acting out behaviors in real life. We will definitely be breaking them down here on this podcast on future episodes, but I want you to know if you have any of those things going on, you're in the right place. We've got your back. So this is the first new and improved episode. There are older videos of Sanity After Betrayal on YouTube, and we've left them there so you can be inspired by them. But Jamie and I are going to start making consistent videos moving into the future. So, hey, Jamie, what's going on?
Very excited to be in this new position. I have worked with the men for the last 2.5 years, so understanding their journey, I think, is a perfect segue to be able to help those who are struggling with not knowing or finding out that your partner is suffering from either porn, sex addiction. There's so many different levels, but it really is a difficult thing to move through, and it is not an event; it is definitely a journey, and having someone to help move you through the different pieces that you really have to go through in order to make it work. I know Dr. Leigh has helped me in my situation, as far as moving me through steps that I couldn't move myself through and due to trauma. So I really do feel like it's a great fit. And I was really inspired to want to do this because of how she has helped me. And so I'm really excited to be here, and
Yeah.
learn so
I'm
much
so
from both
psyched.
of you.
I'm so psyched because it's been such a hole in the way that I can serve couples. And honestly, serving families is my greater overarching goal opposed to just serving men. And of course, I serve the men to be able to help the families, but this becomes all encompassing being able to be here with you. And of course, we've done lots of different events like this. So I know we're going to have some fun. I know we're going to be able to bring a lot of knowledge and information to people. And you're right. You're a totally perfect fit to be able to work with partners. And you've also talked with partners at length for the last couple of years. So, you've already been doing this. We're just moving you officially into this role. So today on our flagship podcast episode, what I was hoping that we could dive into actually springboard off of I just recorded the 100th episode of Porn Brain Rewire, the podcast, which is really, really cool. Because it's 100 opportunities for healing. At the same time, my YouTube channel, Porn Brain Rewire, just received 20 million views. So I am just overwhelmed with the response from people in terms of men responding to the message and the teachings that I have on how to overcome porn addiction and other sexual acting out behaviors. That's why I want you women to join me here so that you can learn about your journey, which is not the same as the men's journey. But I want to talk about kind of what I talked about on that 100th episode of the podcast. But I think this is funny. I think I told you this, Jamie, that a while ago, we've been listening to a lot of T Swift around here because Taylor Swift is so big with her Eras tour. And my husband asked me, what does she mean when she says, keep your side of the street clean? And I'm like, dude, let me tell you, all these behaviors that I do, that's me keeping my side of the street clean. Then you need to keep your side of the street clean, and I explained that to him. And really what it means is we're moving towards having an interdependent relationship, a better and better interdependent relationship where he does the things that he needs to do to show up as the best version of himself in his life, not for me, but if he's being the best version of himself, I get the best version of himself. And vice versa. I show up as the best version of myself, and then he gets to experience that. And I remember a long time ago, actually, one of my students who was older than me told me I was traveling a lot for work. And she's like, you really need to stop driving this distance because you must show up as the worst version of mom to your kids. And that really resonated with me because by the time I got home, I was beat. I'd already worked like a 12-hour day because I'd work long days and I travel 2 hours to work. Her words rang true, and I end up leaving that position because I'm like, I don't want to show up as the worst version of myself for the people I love the most. But
So
it
much
wasn't
say that.
necessarily, right? It wasn't for them. It was for me because
Yeah.
I want to be the best version of myself for them. So that's what this podcast is about. And let me just say one or two things, and then I'm going to hand it over to Jamie. Is that when I was recording the 100th episode, I really went back to kind of grassroots of thinking about the journey of reparenting your inner child, who is your true capital S self. That is the man's journey, is to figure that out, to leave porn behind. Here on Sanity After Betrayal, it's to figure out how you can do the same thing on your side of the street. So you get to figure out how you can be the best version and you stay true to yourself, because the first betrayal is to that capital S self. When you have an inkling of some stuff's going on that you're not cool with in your relationship, but you don't want to approach conflict. So instead, you you turn the other way, or you convince yourself that it's going to end. And this doesn't come from judgment. This comes from, I understand that that's survival and self-preservation, but I don't want you in survival or self-preservation mode. I want you in healthy, thriving mode. And the only way to get that is to not betray yourself. Okay, James. So I know you have some thoughts on emotional maturity and intelligence, which I also talked about on that 100th episode, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
I did want to, just kind of quickly say one thing moving into this position, I'm no longer having to travel back and forth to the office. And so my daughter told me yesterday, she said, Mom, I love the fact that you're here when I come home from school. And it made me feel so good that, I just that 30 minutes or 45-minute drive, even though I loved it, cranking up my music and, drinking my coffee, but, it really made me feel good to know that she truly does, feel good about me coming home, and I
Yeah,
love
it's so
being here when
beautiful.
she's home. I'll be outside waiting, and it's so nice. But
Yeah,
when
it's
you
so
were
great, right?
it is when you were talking about interdependency, I did want to say that you're either disengaged or you're codependent, and the goal here is to have that interdependency and learning how to do that. And so being able to do that is kind of the part of why we're here and helping you to move to the next step in this journey. Um, Emotional maturity is definitely something that, a lot of people don't understand when we say emotional maturity. Thinking of this as your partner being a 6-year-old child. And, it really is very similar to that. They have, because
And
of what,
honestly, thinking of yourself being a 6-year-old
yes,
child, like, that's the inner child piece. It's like, it's not like your man's, he is using childish coping mechanisms. But then if you get mad and you put a tracker on his car or you keep checking his phone, you're doing the same thing. Both of those things are very emotionally immature coping mechanisms. Everybody's got to grow themselves up in this situation. That's why the world can benefit from this journey. But go on.
and it's not easy, learning those things are definitely, it's what do I do, how do I get there, and learning how to first care about yourself, and not being so concerned about what they're doing, because that can literally drain you. Addiction, with any addiction, it's not just affecting that person, it is affecting the entire family. and in very different ways, but it does. And so, we in the both of the programs, we actually have an emotional maturity um, kind of a guide that can tell you exactly where you're at. We and Dr. Leigh, your personality test also is an amazing thing to be able to really understand your strengths and your weaknesses, and how do you get to where you want to be. And so that's an amazing. If you haven't done that in the program, I highly suggest to find out
Yeah,
what your
and I think like the interesting part of this journey is like before you know about recovery or personal transformation, like you're kind of happily, blissfully ignorant. And what this journey, when you find out your partner's acting out in a way that you are not cool with, and you're like, I'm going to figure out how to do something about this because I'm not staying in this for the rest of my life, you're snapped out of that blissful ignorance and you're snapped into, okay, something has to be done, but you don't even get that it's within you. You think your partner has to do it, and your partner has to do his part. He has to clean up his side of the street. But when you, as a woman, figure out like how to clean up your side of the street for you, it's mind blowing. It's like, and I know a lot of partners are like, I don't get why I need a program. And increasing your emotional intelligence is, to me, that's the goal of like living this human experience. By the time I get to the end of it, I'm hoping that I have a lot of this stuff figured out. And that's why like what the hurtful moments that come to you become those opportunities. But that's why in the program we have, okay, figure out where your emotional intelligence is, figure out your personality type, figure out what, quote unquote childish or less than mature mechanisms you're using to deal. And maybe we could segue for a minute or two into acting in and acting out behaviors, because I also wanted to touch upon that today. And I intended on making a list of 3 or 5, acting in and acting out. But really, what I wanted to do is conceptualize acting in, conceptualize acting out, and give some examples. And this is going to be your, stay sane strategy for the day, which I usually keep it to the end, but I do want to circle back to something. So, in all of these podcasts, I encourage you to get a journal. I encourage you to make it one that you enjoy writing in. I hear from partners all the time, they've just got a crappy notebook so that they can burn it when they're done. And you can burn it. There you go.
given me when I first started, so I still actually use this for
Yeah, it's
really
so nice.
important things. This is like my Bible, and I
Yeah,
don't
and a
write
lot of
in.
people tell me, I just want a crappy notebook because I don't like where I'm at in life. And what I want to teach you is, even though you don't like your situation, we're going to give you some skills to deal with that situation in a really strong, healthy way. And having a nice journal and a nice pen is a starting point. And I really want everybody to get a nice one. I don't have mine. I have a stack of some of them near me, but I don't have my good pen. But, I just get ones that are semi nice. I get them at the Mart. I'm balling on a budget. Each one of them costs like $8. You don't have to, spend a ton of money on it. It just shouldn't be something that every time you pull it out, you're like, ugh, I got to work in this thing. It should be like, okay, good. I get to work on improving my life in this notebook. And so, in terms of acting in and acting in are internalized behaviors that you use to deal with stress. So, when you found out about betrayal, you were stressed out, most likely. And so, your nervous system kicked into a mode of, how am I going to deal with this stress? And so, some of that is internalized and some of that is externalized. The external are easier to see, but usually the external also have some breadcrumbs back to an internal. So acting in is what you do internally, acting out is what you do externally. So I'm going to start with a list of external behaviors because it'll be easier to see them. Then we'll bring them back to acting in, which I think is a little trickier. So, like I already said, putting a GPS tracker on your man so you can see where he goes, that's a checking behavior. I would call that probably public enemy number 1 in acting out behaviors in sexual betrayal trauma. And I get why you're doing it. It's because you want to know. And honestly, in today's day and age, you might have that on your whole family in the first place. I do not have a tracker on any of my people unless they warrant it, which sometimes I put it on with my children. But if they don't warrant it, if they can be trusted, and that's the goal, and that's why I want you to follow me on this. If they can be trusted, They don't need a tracker. Sometimes some of my children can't be trusted, and as their mama bear, tracker we go. But as, as far as your partner goes, your partner is not your child. It is his deal to become trustworthy. If you can't trust him, you can't trust him. A tracker's not going to make it so you can trust him. It's just going to hold more accountability, but that's not what you want. You want him to be accountable to you for the rest of your life? No. So checking behaviors are number one, acting out. Other acting out behaviors could be drinking 3 glasses of delicious Chardonnay. You know, a lot of people drink and eat as an acting out behavior. And yeah, that takes the pain away for just a beat. Normally it gives you more pain the next day, and it gives you guilt about just trying to numb the pain away. That's clearly an acting out behavior that's just meant to try to make it go away, but it can't go away. You have to approach and engage and stay in it. Excessive working. People who like to work, they might just double down on work. And that way, if you're working your booty off, you don't have time to think about it. Other people get addicted to working out, excessive working out. I worked with one woman who was in this situation. She was a professional, but she literally did CrossFit 2 times a day, every day. And I was trying to get her to do CrossFit 1 time a day. Even on Sundays, she'd do CrossFit twice. Go to the CrossFit place, do CrossFit. She was a beast master, don't get me wrong. And I was like, I wish I was as fit as you. But at the same time, I was thinking, I'm very glad I don't feel compelled to go to CrossFit 2 times a day. And it's to fill all the downtime internally and to be able to just, you know, kind of numb it away with when you work out, you get a lot of dopamine, you get serotonin, you know, you get the juices flowing. So those are some examples of acting out. And acting out is unhealthy coping mechanisms. And then they stem from acting in behaviors, where acting in is overthinking. Like Jamie already said, if you're just constantly can't stop thinking about what your man is doing, what you need to do is to get your mind back on your side of the street. But an acting in behavior is obsessively thinking about what your man has going on. And it comes out of not being able to set the boundaries. You feel hopeless and helpless and that there's nothing you can do. There's always something you can do. And when you're doing the thing that you need to do and you should do, you don't have to act in and act out. What were you going to say, James?
Just that, and that internally acting in, it's hard to not stop thinking about it, especially if you suffer from anxiety. And this is something, trauma, your nervous system, it will create neurorigidity in your brain. So, it's that will perpetuate anxiety and lack of focus. So, that's one of the things, it's going to create this intrusive thoughts. You can't stop thinking about it, but you can do things in order to stop thinking about it. So that's the goal here, is to find out what those things are and to implement them into your life. And it's not easy at first. I know one of the things that I used to do, and talking about just segueing a little different, but um, familiar, familial, how do you say that?
Yeah,
Predestination.
familiar.
So, my mother and father fought a lot. That's all I heard whenever I was younger. When something happened, she'd start yelling. And when I got angry, guess what I did? Start yelling. Mikey comes from a very quiet home. They never fought. They always talk softly. And so, if we would ever have an argument, I'm yelling and he's talking softly, and he thinks because he's not yelling that he's not doing anything wrong, but the things that may be said can be very hurtful. So our communication, and what I've learned is how to communicate. And when I do get to that point where I want to blow up, I have to walk away and I have to take a walk, because if not, I will. And, learning those different techniques and kind of having a toolbox, to use to be able to deal with those things. So
Yeah, and we teach about that fight, flight, fawn. Like most people don't know about that, where, when you yell, and my husband's a yeller because he defaults to fight. I default to flight or fawn. Fawning is like, okay, let's just make everything better as quickly as possible. And you fawn around like a little deer trying to make everything better really quick. Survival mechanism. That's not healthy. That is a stress response. And fight is, my husband was yelling at me and he was just, it wasn't it wasn't to me or about me. It was just at me because he was stressed out. I know he was stressed out. So I'm staring at him while he yells at me. And then I said to him, do not yell at me again. I'm like, stop yelling at me right now. But he's in fight mode. So that's very difficult for him. And I'm like, if you don't stop yelling at me, I'm going to have to walk away. But I know it's just because he defaults to fight, and there's something that is making him angry, and he goes into fight mode, where I'm like, I'm stressed out. See ya. And I'm out the door. And that's flight. So we teach you a lot about that. And, that's something, food for thought here. And, how are you acting? What is that stress response? Is it unhealthy? Are you fighting? And passive aggressive is another thing I had on the list of acting out. And for me, an acting in behavior that leads to acting out, which I'm always trying not to do, is I call it my self-righteousness. Is like, if I get stressed out, I'm like, forget it, I'll just do it myself.
I do that too.
You just relax over there. It's all passive aggressive too.
Yeah,
You just relax, babe. I'll do it. And
absolutely. I can do it in 5 minutes. That's fine. I've got it. In the game.
yeah, exactly. You just level up that video game and
Yep.
but I know when my husband plays more video games, he's super stressed out. So then when I hit him with a passive aggressive self righteousness, we're just doing the toxic dynamic dance of not approaching and engaging the thing that we need to. And actually, now we're much better at it. Like, what he'll do is he'll yell at me, then he'll go somewhere, and then he'll come back and he'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm just stressed out about this. So, again, this isn't perfect. This is progress, not perfection, but skill building all along the way. And it's amazing when you can do that. And then it's conflict. Nobody's going to die if you have a little conflict between you, but you have to know what you need out of your relationship, and you have to respect yourself before you respect your partner's unhealthy needs. And that's why Kaz can play 100 hours of video games. I'm not going to tell him to get off. I'm not his mama. Don't get me wrong, my sons, I'm like, dude, you need to get off. And you, young man, you need to go to bed. But Kazi wants to stay up all night. But you know what? If someday I choose that I don't want to be with a man who plays 100 hours of video games, that's going to be the discussion on the table. But, for right now, I'm like, do I care? No. He's his own man. He can manage his time and his stress in his own way. So I don't have to be upset with him, nor do I have to micromanage him. I'm happy keeping my side of the street clean. But if I think gaming a lot is a dirty street side, I have to tell him. I have to go, you know what? That makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it, which in this case, I don't feel that way. But I do know it's a stress response for him. So I wait for him to move through his stress process. And I can respect that he's going through something. But there are
You're
times where, I'll show up and go, you know what? You know that thing you got going on? It does not feel good to me, and we're going to need to talk about it. And then you know what he'll say? You want to talk about everything. And I'm like, not everything, but when you're ready, I want to talk about this.
a really good response. Just your thought on whenever people say, pick your battles.
Mhm.
What is your thought on that? Because, I hear that a lot, and everything, shouldn't be a huge thing, but, is there a line that,
Yeah, there definitely is a line. And that's why we're here, because every single woman, and I'd say every single man, I had a discussion with a man in this exact situation yesterday, and I can say what it is in a second, but we all need to know where our line is. And if you're stressed out about something, your line has been crossed. And a gentleman I talked to yesterday, he's so stressed out, and he is involved in a porn habit, and he's so stressed out because his wife calls him all day, every day. I'm sure it's a checking behavior, and he just talks to her all day, every day. And he's like, I'm losing my mind. I'm like, have you told her that? He's like, no, because they're newly married. No, I don't want her to feel bad. I go, dude, there's no way this ends well unless you communicate with her in a healthy way and you set up what is good for you. And she needs to be soothed by hearing you. She has to figure out how to trust you and go soothe herself. And then you know what he said? I said, can you do that? He's like, I'm going to try. I'm like, there's no trying in this. You need to do this. And he's like, I'm going to try. I'm like, okay, you go try. But I really encourage you to do this. And I gave him the solution. The solution is we can talk in the morning, and for 15 minutes, half hour, I'll text you throughout the day and to let you know I'm thinking about you. And then we can reconnect and talk for an hour at night. I mean, that's very healthy in an interdependent relationship. Having to have conversations every 25 minutes, it's anxious attachment. And I teach you in the digital program what secure attachment is like. That's an anxious attachment, which comes out of a codependent relationship. And, and I know my husband and I had some of these dynamics back in the day too. He'd go golfing and he would feel guilty for going golfing, thinking I cared. And maybe I did care. I don't remember back in those days. I definitely don't care now. And he stopped texting me because I'm like, you don't have to text me. You go enjoy your time and I'll see you when you get home. And then I tried really hard not to call him. And I totally called him this Sunday. He golfs every Sunday because there was a thing going down with my daughter. And and he texts me something like, thanks a lot, my game went to shit. And I'm like, yeah, well, at least it's just a golf game. So, but then I texted him a smoochy face, and then he texted me back the emoji with the hearts around the face, like meaning like, yeah, this stinks, but you know what, I shouldn't have to deal with our kids shenanigans by myself because I'm not disrupting his game. I don't disrupt his game unless I feel like I need support on something. That time I did. So guess what? Your game goes to crap, but I've got to deal with a kid all day. So like, those are the lines. So I have that line. Like, my line is like, this, I'm not going to be self-righteous. I'm not going to handle everything and not let him in because I'm protecting his emotional response.
And so what about the avoidance, the attachment style? You've got the anxious, but then you've got avoidance. And, I
Yeah.
guess
And
just not talking about it, and then holding that resentment.
yeah. And men who watch porn 9 out of 10 times, they have an avoidant attachment style. And most times women in that case have anxious because they are avoidant. And so the solution, avoidant, means it's time for difficult emotions to be parsed through. And it's like, no, thank you. I will just go watch porn instead. And then what happens to the partner is they become even more anxious because there's a thing plus escapism. And so, the goal is, if your partner's less avoidant and learns to show up to talk with you, which that's what we cover in the 90-day program, one of many things, but he learns to interact with you better, which is what I was telling that gentleman yesterday. You have to tell her how you feel instead of just being mad and stressed out all day. And that's one of my neurofeedback coaching clients. I could see the stress building in his brain on his brain training graphs. I'm like, there's no lying to me. I nailed the dates too of the most phone calls. And he told me, he's like, that's because of my spouse. And I'm like, okay, then there's work to be done here, my friend.
It's amazing when you can actually say something, and you call them out gently. I mean, it's very lovingly, and this date did this happened, and it's this pause, and but it really is cool to be able to see that and to help them to understand when they see that in their graph
And it's
that
always stress. It's always stress. And
that
then what a lot of men, avoidant attachment men, think they have to handle it all by themselves because it shows weakness if they show their partner. And, that's why keeping the sides of the street clean doesn't mean you're in isolation. It means you're doing what you need to do, but then you're sharing that, not oversharing, but you're on the same team. Like, what's the point if you're not on the same team as your partner in crime? If your partner's got shenanigans going on and then you are holding all this inside, laying in bed at night, torturing yourself. And that is the journey for many partners. I've talked to so many partners, and you have too. They're like, I know he's doing these things, and I lay in bed and I feel sick and I cry. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. When you get that strength, internal strength, because you're becoming interdependent, you're able to go, that's not okay. I'm not okay with it. And either we're going to fix it or I'm going to have to move on. And I don't want people to move on, just to be clear. I want people to fix it if it can be repaired. But you have to feel healed and whole on the inside, whole, not stressed and tortured on the inside.
and that's definitely a process. This is there's many different levels and places that you can be. Um, but it
Yeah,
is not
it's
one that
it's
it's
not a one-off. And that's why we're
Yeah.
here. And I'll say one more thing, and then maybe you can wrap it up, and we'll wrap up our flagship podcast with me and you. Is that the reason I created the digital program is because I want women to know your side of the street has a different process than your man. And I know a lot of partners watch my Porn Brain Rewire channel because they want to know what's going on with their man. And I think it's totally cool. Go over there to figure it out. But your process is different. You need to start coming here to this YouTube channel, Sanity After Betrayal. And if you're inspired, you need to get into the digital program because it moves you through the process that will be very difficult for you to do alone. That's why I made that, because my heart is aching for women who stay stuck in that. And some women stay stuck in it for decades. There's no need, because what we have seen is the amazing transformation you can make with your partner. Like the life and the relationship that you've always wanted is there for the taking. You don't know it now if you're in this position. I know it sounds so cheesy, but we've seen it where, women are devastated and they just think they're going to leave. They're just going to get divorced. But if you can move your partner through a process that we know, the full process to help you move yourself through and help him move through, on the other side is an interdependent relationship of shared respect, of self respect, of laughter. I know a lot of women grieve. They're like, my whole relationship's been fake. It hasn't, but it's had this within it. It's not fake. So, what you can do is boot this out, change the dynamics, and to be super clear, you cannot go back to the same relationship. You have to build a new one that's built on a new foundation. That's what we teach you. And that's why Jamie is so essential, because you need personal coaching also. And that's why I really haven't put this program out there, because I haven't had the bandwidth to do the coaching. And that's when the light bulb turned on. I'm like, Jamie is amazing at this. And, she's been trained through these programs for years. So in the lead coach program, what Jamie will do is walk you through the steps you don't even know exist right now. You don't know what the process is. You don't know what each step is. It's actually quite linear, even though it's non-linear, meaning like there is a step one, there is a step two, there is a step three, there is a final step. And we can move you through those steps with Jamie leading you step by step. And we don't say, okay, this is the finish line, because you can't even conceptualize that. You haven't even done step one.
One thing that I had said to a client that I was coaching, I said the old relationship is gone, and the goal is to build a new relationship, and so you can communicate, and he can be vulnerable. You can be vulnerable. Tell him what you like, what you want, and I said have the best sex of your life, and they paused for a second, and she was like, "The best sex? Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's the goal here. It's never, you're never too old to have,
Mm-hmm.
you should have that intimacy, and it's amazing to be able to sit and hold hands, and to have that just uncomfortable silence where you don't have to say anything, but if something needs to be said, you have the strength to say it. And the whole point is building up your self-worth and your self-confidence so you can be the best version of yourself. And
Yeah. I love it. When in the darkest moments of my and my husband's relationship, I had read somewhere that the Bushes, Barbara Bush and George Bush, the older, senior, that they held hands when they slept.
oh
And
well,
so I would always say to my husband, who'd die if he knew I was saying this, where I'd be like, let's hold hands like the Bushes, because that's the only place we were at in that place in our relationship. So every night, like, we would be kind of far apart on the bed, but we would hold hands like the Bushes. And like holding hands like the Bushes literally got me through the darkness to the sunrise. And like you said, it's just like reconnecting and staying connected intimately while we were working on difficult things in our relationship. It's so important, because if you completely disengage, you're just like, I'm out, because it gets difficult. But if you can stay connected intimately while you're moving through a challenging conflict process, like it's pretty amazing. So I still think of that sometimes, hold hands like the Bushes.
really a cool thing. I've never heard that. I'm always so hot at night, and my husband is freezing cold. So of course he wants to snuggle, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, wait
Yeah.
for me, so total.
I literally just took a picture
Yeah.
this morning because it's so funny because we had a queen bed with all moving because of the toxic mold and all that jazz. We had a king bed for a long time. We got a queen bed and I'm like, I like the queen bed. Let's just keep it. And my husband's like, no, 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 no. We need a bigger bed. But the dude is literally on my side all the time. So this morning I just took a picture of it. It's like our pillows both on my side.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
That's
I
so
was going to
funny.
show him the evidence. I don't know if you've seen those commercials where during the football games they'll ask for like a rewind in the relationship. It's like a relationship rewind. I don't ever watch TV, but we've been watching the Bills game, and it's like, they throw a flag and then they come in and they do a rewind to show what happened in the relationship. Because I'll always say, "You're on my side all night long." He's like, "No, I'm not." And then I'm like, "I call for a rewind. Look at these pillows."
That's a great thing to use. I've got that. Oh, I'm gonna have my kids
So
roll
funny. So okay, so this video is on YouTube. The podcast will be streamed. It's if you're hearing it on the podcast, it's streamed on all podcast streaming services. And we do have older videos that you might find helpful, and we're going to have new ones coming out consistently on YouTube channel Sanity After Betrayal. The links are there, but it's easy. Just go to sanityafterbetrayal.com, sign up for the digital program, and if you need more support, get in with Jamie so she can move you through this very important process. Think about when you have a big situation, if you go to the right resource, you save time, money, and energy. I now know that because I've been taking programs forever. I have two coaches. I talked about this on the 100th episode. Like, I'm no longer the person who thinks she knows how to do everything. Back in the day, be like, I got this. How hard could it possibly be? Now, if anything hits the fan, I'm like, I am going to invest my time, energy, and money up front so that I'm not wasting time, money, and energy over time to just fail. So now I'm going to do it up front. I basically can guarantee success if I can stay in the process. And I've actually saved time, money, and energy. So I know it's an investment in these programs of time, money, and energy, but the return on investment is huge. I'm telling you that. So stay on YouTube or in the podcast. And when you're ready, get into the digital program and get coaching.
It can definitely change the trajectory of your life, your relationship. When you do sign up, you do get a free consultation with me. So even if you would just like to have a consultation to learn a little bit more, the link will be in below. So check it out, schedule a consultation. I'd love to meet with you and talk with you. Dr. Leigh, this is a great podcast, and I appreciate
Yeah, super
you
fun. That's
for
great.
the
Yeah.
time.
No problem. I want to show up here with you. Jamie's going to have her own podcast episodes, but I'm going to show up as often as possible because let's help some women stay sane, right, throughout this process.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
okay, let's wrap up. Okay, friends, thanks for joining us. Want more help? Go over to sanityafterbetrayal.com and stay sane. Until next time. Thanks.
Have a good day.